Welcome all to That's How We Do, episode 5, brought to you from odds.com, brought to you by odds.com. How to win at betting baseball. How to win at betting baseball. And I brought together the best MLB handicappers that I know. Let's introduce you to this panel right now. We'll start on the bottom left-hand corner. The legend, Loshak in the house. Pete, how are you, my man?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Jimmy the Bag. You know, I do like baseball. You know, in baseball, you're going up against legions of grad students with their fucking, models and shit and their machine learning stuff. But, and if I get my ass beat, handed to me maybe 3 seasons in a row, I'll quit. That hasn't happened yet, though.
It has not happened yet. It has not happened yet. And in front of our very own eyes, you have destroyed MLB year after year. Next up, top right corner, Mr. New in Town, a.k.a. Twaaty Latte in the house. Spectacular MLB handicapper rolling with us on That's How We Do. How you doing, Twaaty?
Love it, Jimmy. So honored to be with you and the legend Loshak, who got me into the analytics way back in the day, and just humbled to be with you guys and NL, of course. So let's kick some knowledge.
Let's kick some knowledge. You guys all handle MLB differently, and I can't wait to break down how you guys do it, the methods that you do it. Let's introduce the man, Ant L, star of the Sports Keg, another handicapper that I've watched absolutely destroy MLB for 3 straight years. I've seen him do it for 3 straight years, and would be a 4th if MLB was on right now. Ant, it's so great to see you again, man. It's been a long time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. It looks like we might have some MLB to actually bet on in about a month, so that's going to be exciting.
It does look like it. It didn't look like it about a week ago, but it's starting to look like it now.
And it's going to be in their actual home stadiums, right? Not in Arizona. Is that what they're saying?
It's a real possibility right now that they'll get to play in their own stadiums. That was the big change that's happened in the past week. So it looks promising. Feels like the world is coming back. Let's give a shout out to all the cappers in the chat. Dennis Garcia in the house. Flipper 13. Spencer Penny G rolling with us. Michael De Maria. Cynthia Paniagua. Guillermo Zertucci. Captain Marvel. John Roy. Mr. Gokester. Ron Lofton. Christopher Comatini. Robert Kahn. Brandon Leese. Trav17, Swervin, Jay Yim, Bob Taylor. What a great, great group. I'm so excited about this episode. So, let's start simple and let's slowly gravitate to more complicated theories and plans. So I would like to start with a very simple question, and we'll get you guys all to answer it. This simple question is, what are common mistakes that beginners make in MLB baseball? Why don't we start with you, Pistol Pete Loshak? What are the mistakes that cappers who bet all sports all season long, don't focus on baseball very much, come over to baseball and then start losing? And I've been known to do that. What are common mistakes that we make?
Do you mind if I change the topic just for 5 seconds to Nicaragua basketball, give a pick, and then go right back to baseball?
As you should.
Okay. So all the people who tuned in expecting MLB and now they're getting Nicaragua basketball, I'm sorry. But these games are going off at 8:30 Eastern time, and I have been doing well in this league in Asian basketball and Nicaragua basketball. I admit that I have 3 bets going at 8:30, and I'm on the wrong side of big line movements on all of them. But I'm okay with that. My favorite play, I think, would be under 158 in Matagalpa, Brumas, Ginotega. Under 158 in Matagalpa, Brumas, Ginotega. I also took Brumas plus the points and Costa Rica plus the points, but I'm on the wrong side of huge line moves on both of those, so probably don't tail. I still like the under, though, in a Matagalpa game. All right, back to MLB. That's not a joke. I'm really on that. The thing is that there's so many ways that you can, start analyzing baseball just from the get-go, that there's so many mistakes and pitfalls that you can fall into. The classic one was overvaluing starting pitchers. That was the classic one, like 20 years ago or whatever. But I don't even know. I think like the floor for general stupidity of humanity has raised. Like, I don't know if beginners now are that stupid anymore. I think even beginners know not to overvalue starting pitching. Starting pitching is definitely, factored into the line. And
I would counter
Go
that,
ahead.
and people still overvalue starting pitching.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
and jump in on that. Oh shoot, sorry, and yeah, there you go. And jump in more on that because
it's just I mean, I kind of want Pete to finish his point, but I just wanted to point out that, like, I still run across people who still just completely look at starters and that's it.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing is that the markets have gotten so efficient. Like what I said in the beginning of in my intro, there's so many incredibly accurate models that are used now to set the market lines that if you are overvaluing starting pitching, you're going to find yourself on the wrong side of a lot of those lines for exactly that reason. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. If you find yourself on the wrong side of line moves and overestimating or underestimating some teams' results habitually, look at that. You might be overestimating the importance of the starting pitchers.
I think it's a great point to get it rolling. Mistakes that people make, because there is a common thought, when you're capping baseball, that the one person that has the most important role in the game is the starting pitching. And we've seen in MLB the starting pitcher, even in MLB alone, not even in handicapping it, but become less and less important. We see openers, we've seen all that. So overestimating a starting pitching or putting too much into starting pitching, number one from Pete Loshak. Let's go to Ant L. What is the common mistakes that you see MLB handicappers make?
I think, and this might actually just be across all sports, but I think it's market entry. One thing that I see a lot is, it'll be, if the games are all popping off at 6 p.m. Central Time. Sorry, I'll talk about Central Time because that's the time zone I'm in. But if games are all popping off at 6 p.m. Central Time and people are talking about who they want to bet and it's noon, they might be like in the old days when we were on the Loshak in the Bag show, or if they're watching any other like morning show, or if they're just talking with their friends, or like they get off work at 4 o'clock and they go down to the local casino, because casinos are everywhere now with sports books. And I've gone to the casinos after work too, to the sports books, and I see people, they're like, all right, who do we want to bet? Who do we want to bet? And they're betting favorites 2 hours before tip off or 2 hours before first pitch. And you really got to think of it more of a market entry point, because 2 hours before first pitch, you're getting 50 cents worse of the line than I did or Twaaty did or Pete did last night when we bet that favorite at minus 150, and now you're betting them at minus 200. So market entry is, in my opinion, the most important part of baseball betting. And if you're betting baseball every single day, you start to learn to be able to read the markets. If you know what statistics those modelers go, as Pete mentioned, all those grad students with their fancy dancy models and all that stuff, it's not that hard to actually, even if you don't model, if you know what statistics they put into their models, and you could just look up the numbers on the pitchers, you could look up the numbers on the hitters and all that stuff, you could predict with easy certainty where that line's going to go before the lines are even open. I already know, okay, this starting pitcher versus this starting pitcher against this team. I already see their numbers. I already know what's going to go into the models. When those lines open at 8 o'clock at night, the night before, okay, this team that's minus 150, if they drop minus 150, they're going to move to minus 200. Bang, I'll hit them at minus 150. You got them at minus 200. So I would say market entry or not understanding the importance of market entry and closing line values, probably the biggest cost-making mistake of anybody. And that's probably across all sports, not just baseball.
Overvaluing starting pitching, market entry. Matt, my man, Mr. New in Town, do you have anything to add to this? What are the common mistakes that you see MLB handicappers make?
Really, there's too many. You know what I mean? And I don't mean it that way. So I'll just, like a wise man once told me, if you treat it like a business, it will pay like a business. So in other words, if you're lazy at it, you're going to lose money. If you don't get the overnight line, you let that go, and then you try to pick up that game at 7:05 the next day, you missed the line, okay? So you were lazy, okay? So, putting a game out or betting a game before you check the lineups. You got a lefty that's on the mound, so Schwarber's not going to be in the lineup, or you got a righty on the mound, so you're not going to have, Bryant and Javi Baez. That's just being lazy. But if it was your business, you would make sure you dotted the I's and crossed the T's, right? So it's just, you can't be lazy with it and then throw your hands up and say, well, why did I lose? Well, you left too much on the fucking table. You know what I mean? So there isn't one particular thing. But again, if you treat it like a business, like you would treat your own business, it will pay like a business.
I think you guys are, nailing these. And one thing that I struggled with when I was down south with Pete on our show was that we'd work, we just putting on the 2 shows a day would be we'd expend so much energy. It was so tiring that I wanted to sleep. And especially if I was stressed out or losing, I just wanted to go right home and right into bed. I wanted to, and then I would wake up, as you guys knew, at 4:40 in the morning.
Oh, the good old days.
But even doing that was a huge mistake, right, Pete? Even doing that was a huge mistake. You have to be capping that night. And I know you would do that, Pete. You would cap that night of.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that, first of all, I want to say that what Anthony said, I second 100% about knowing and being aware of what goes into the modelers' models, even if you're not necessarily doing it yourself, because, they tend to obviously use, there's slight variation from model to model, of course, but, there are certain factors that they all use, and they all use them in the same ways. And if you're aware of that, I wouldn't say that it's easy or, that you can predict 100% where the lines are going to go. That's definitely, but I would definitely say that it sheds a lot of valuable light on it. And I also find that when in baseball, 100%. Yeah. In baseball, the hard part for me would always be, obviously the preseason preparation and then the first 2 weeks of the season. After that, and you probably experienced this too, Jim, when you were, doing an entire season of NHL, the day-to-day work actually got easier as the season went along, because it was kind of like a wave that you were surfing. What the factors are, what's going to stay the same. Something that's an important factor that's a big change is going to catch your eye easily. So for me, the hard part in baseball was preseason preparation, the first 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, however long it would take, and then after that, it would sort of become a surf. And that actually, the first couple weeks after the All-Star break was also kind of annoying and difficult and stressful as well. But then the surfing would come back in again. So I just wanted to go ahead.
Let's move into that. So we've talked about the common mistakes.
Jim, sorry to cut. I didn't really give you my main thing, because I wanted it to be overall. You have to do your homework. But the biggest thing by far for me, and the thing I can tell everybody is streaks in baseball. You will hear they're due. You will hear that constantly from someone. That's probably the biggest mistake I hear, that a team is due to start hitting. A team is due to start pitching better. A team is due to stop hitting. It's by far the worst thing you could do, because baseball is nothing but streaks. That's all it is. Bad teams will rattle off 8-9 games in a row. Good teams will lose 5-6 games in a row. So that is by far. I proved that 2 years ago with the Reds.
I remember.
I probably made 100 units in a month just off of one team. You got to ride them
when they're a bad team.
That's a good point. And they were a bad team. But they had a lineup that was such that you knew they were going to get you runs. But that's a whole other story. But anyway, don't ever in baseball say they're due. It's the worst thing to say. Hot teams stay hot, cold teams stay cold. By far the biggest thing.
And I think Oh,
Sure.
I was going to want to touch on one last thing on beginner mistakes before we move on to the next one. But I think another huge beginner mistake, and this is for any money line sport, baseball, whether you're betting soccer, whether you're betting hockey, if it's a money line sport, not knowing what the win probability conversion rate is on the money line you're betting. Not knowing that minus 200 means you have to win 66.6% of the time to break even. Not knowing that, plus 200 is the reverse of that. Just not knowing your win conversion rates on money lines. And the other thing is, and everybody makes this mistake, so don't feel stupid if you still do this, because I did it. I had a friend very sarcastically tell me that I was an idiot when I did this, and it kind of made me stop it. It was like parlaying a bunch of money line favorites and thinking you just got one over on the book. I'm like, yeah, I got the Astros, the Yankees, the Cubs, and the Indians today. They're all minus 250, minus 300. I'm going to win for sure. And my buddy's like, oh, well, great, Anthony. Great job. I mean, no one ever in the history of sports betting ever thought to just parlay a bunch of huge money line favorites like that. You're really going to get over on the book, aren't you? And I'm like, oh, you're being a dick, aren't you? He's like, yeah, I am. And sure enough, that's just a huge mistake too, because you parlay 4 minus 300 favorites, statistically and mathematically, the math is saying one of those teams is going to lose. So everyone goes, I can't believe I lost my parlay. I had 3 minus 300 favorites in my parlay. How did it lose? Well, minus 300 is 75% win probability. 1 out of 4 is going to lose. So
it's a great point.
That is that's if we're talking about beginner mistakes. Yeah, just one thing to keep in mind for all the beginners out there: there's no betting strategy that you can use that will turn a negative EV bet into a positive EV bet. So if you got a bet that you've handicapped and it's you're too afraid to bet it straight because you think it might be negative EV, you bet it some other way, it's still negative EV. You're just lying to yourself. Keep that in mind.
Well, you guys, one of the things that excited me about putting the three of you together is you all cap MLB so differently, yet you all have the same result, and that's that you beat it year after year. So Pete already, showed us a peek of what he goes through to prepare before the season starts, and I want to go there. I also want to go. So why don't we just start? We're going to go to people. Why don't we start with Matt? Matt, with the Cincinnati Reds offense, because I remember that you were run with them very well, and they were, as Ant says, they were a poor team. They're one of the worst teams in the league. So what statistics were you looking at? Was it like highbrow stuff? Because what we've seen, the evolution of statistics, and I know that Ant is spectacular at looking at the angles that he looks at, and he looks at the most evolved statistics that we have. But let's go with you, Matt, from that Cincinnati Reds run that we all watched. And so could you tell us what statistics were you looking at and what bets were you making that drove you to that giant success that month or 6 weeks?
Well, basically that was all eye test, because I do some analytics. I do quite a bit of analytics, not quite as much as Ant. But I do a lot of analytics, but I have MLB Network on all day. So I knew this was a team that was stacked. I mean, they were stacked 1 through 8 in the lineup, but they were just underperforming and they were going to get hot. So I just wrote them. And when I wrote them team totals. Okay. I wrote them full game overs. I wrote them money line. I wrote them every way you could write them. I even wrote the other team totals, which were all cashing. So that particular run was more just eyeball test in that particular situation. But there is a couple things that I do look at on the analytics. I just go to whip. I don't go any deeper than whip. I usually will go whip. One thing I really put a lot of stock on, and actually Anthony and I are way different on this, is I go to number of at-bats against the pitcher. Okay. And that's just growing up, knowing the more I saw a pitcher, the more I was going to hit him. You know what I mean? I don't even care if the numbers are bad. Okay. They could be, hitting 200 against a pitcher, but if they have 300 combined at bats or 200 combined at bats, I know they're going to get to that guy. Okay, it's just a matter of time. The more you see it, and here's the biggest proof to that. No manager will let a pitcher go out for the third time around the order. I mean, so it's proven. And the reason for that is because the league hits a lot better once they've seen the pitcher 3 times around. So I'm always looking at that stat. It's one of the biggest stats I look at. One other little thing is I like right, left, right, left, right, left throughout the lineup. The good hitter or the good teams can do that. That way, at the end of the game, you're not facing Josh Hader, 3-4 lefties in a row. They got to break up their bullpen. So that's a little thing. But whip, number of at-bats against the pitcher, and how the lineup's set. And then, obviously, my go-to is who's hot.
Yeah, and I love. So we're going to see 3 completely different vantage points from these 3 cappers, and I'd like to close with Ant because the way I see this breaking down the most interesting. Let's move over to Pete now. Pete, one of the things that we all like when I started getting a peek at your bullpen ratings that you were doing on your own. And then when we were all seeing how you were just destroying second halves, and I know not all books, give you second halves, but let's just go in general terms. What goes into the preseason work, and what are the statistics that lead you to glory the most often?
Well, I don't want to give away the farm here, but I use a lot of obviously there's a lot of statistics that are, some are less predictive than others. Some are more descriptive than others. And, in general, you want to be the most aware of the statistics that are the most predictive. And you can find all this stuff, read it for yourself on, all the sabermetric sites like Fangraphs obviously is great. That's actually a pretty user-friendly, I find, for beginners and intermediates site. And it's just very interesting in general. For pitchers and especially for guys in the bullpen, there's a lot of new pitcher data that you can use that I find, I'm not going to specifically get into what I look for necessarily, but they have, a lot of pitch effects data. You can find, all the velocity for all their various pitches, how much they're throwing those pitches, how much movement they're getting on those pitches. And I find that, that data at times is, it can be pretty telling and pretty predictive. I tend not to dig into it too deeply unless I have a reason to. If something's not making sense to me, if there's something that I'm wondering about, then I'll start looking, more deep into pitch effects and stuff I look for in those for those metrics to see if it can shed some light on what's confusing me. And a lot of times it does. So, you can find all that stuff at the sabermetric sites, and that's something that I definitely use. But again, though, it's not like I'm sitting there every day looking at, the pitch effects numbers for every pitcher who's starting and all the guys in the bullpen. It's more that I go to it if something's not making sense, and I sort of, want to try to guess at something that might not necessarily be the easiest thing to quantify.
And that's because you're fully entrenched, day to day. Absolutely. Yes. So it's easier for you to see, wait, something doesn't make sense from your statistical breakdown of just a game in, game out when you're going over the numbers. Let's go over to Ant L. And you get deep in this stuff, and, with your use of BABIP, certain stats that you use, I feel like you can almost always tell not everyone else takes a ton of time to put into it. And you also need to be fully entrenched in baseball every single day to know, to realize, look, this statistic right here shows this pitcher is being very lucky and this pitcher is going to get touched. Could you walk us through that?
Yeah. So, a pitcher's BABIP against is one of the huge statistics I look at if I'm trying to find a pitcher who I want to ride or I want to fade. One thing you need to understand, first of all, is BABIP is, for people who don't know, is batting average of balls in play. So it kind of tells you how lucky a pitcher's been getting if he has a very low BABIP or a very high BABIP. In a league average BABIP is between 290 and 310. If a pitcher's BABIP goes way out of those margins, that's when you want to start saying, okay, something's different here. And you can look at a pitcher's career BABIP, because some guys hold very low BABIPs throughout their career because they have very low hard contact metrics. So I'll combine BABIP with their contact ratings, and you can get all this on Fangraphs. You can get all this on StatCast and Baseball Savant, all these websites. So if a pitcher's getting lit up with 40% hard contact, but his BABIP is sitting at 230, that is somebody I'm fading. I don't care if he's 5-0 with a 150 ERA in his last 5 starts. If that son of a bitch has a 250 BABIP and a 40% hard contact metric and 15% Ks, I'm fading the ever-loving crap out of him. Now, I might not be doing it on money lines. I might just be doing first 5 team totals against him, team totals against them, things like that. Or just betting it over if, I don't like the other starting pitcher, I don't like the other bullpen. But that's just one thing I'll combine is hard contact, soft contact metrics versus BABIPs. Because, guys like Kyle Hendricks, people of his ilk, he just has low hard contact metrics. Just induces a lot of soft contact, so he's always going to have a lower than average league-wide BABIP. But I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, this was 2018, CC Sabathia came out the gates hotter than the devil, man. He was I can't remember. It was like 5-0, 170 ERA. Everyone's like, CC's back. CC's a beast. CC's the best. And of course, he's a Yankee, so everyone wants to bet the fucking Yankees anyways. But his BABIP was like 175. Ding, 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 ding. Those are alarm bells. What do? I fade CC Sabathia 3 games in a row at huge plus prices because he's a Yankee. He's CC Sabathia. There's one thing Yankee fans do. It's they bet Yankees. My good friend Jason Paglia from the Sports Cake, he used to be a bookie before he started betting sports professionally. And what did he tell me? He was a bookie in the New York area. And what did he say? Oh, dude, everybody bets the fucking Yankees. Everybody wants to bet the Yankees. So I'm going against the Yankees' big plus prices, fading CC and cashing because he's going to get lit up. You cannot sustain a 175 BABIP with hard contact like that, especially when he was like 38. So he was getting tattooed a lot. So I'm rambling a lot now. I think you guys.
I definitely remember that. I remember that. He was, I couldn't tell you which exact year that was, but I definitely remember that I was auto fading him, and kind of like what I was saying before. I looked into some more in depth metrics to see if if what I was expecting to happen was backed up by the advanced stuff that I look at, and it was. I definitely remember that for sure.
Well, we've got questions coming in from the chat, and I've got more questions here that we'll roll into, but feel free to fire in questions because we got incredible cappers rolling with us. Gas Station Sushi in the chat. Marty Muerte, Connor McLaughlin, Mr. Gogster, who's been killing KBO. We got a great group here. Spencer Penny G, Christopher Comentini. So instead of moving forward with the plan that I had, let's go into a couple questions from the chat. First off, Mr. Gogster has a question. Why don't we give this to Matt? And if Ant or Pete want to jump in, please do. Matt, from Mr. Ghoster, how do you choose what games you bet? Do you bet all your plays with a certain bet size?
Well, I mean, I choose – there's a process that we could probably do a little later about how I break down a game from the very top to the very bottom. And I put a percentage on it, and I flip that percentage to a money line, what Ant was basically talking about earlier. So how I do it is obviously I find the most value, where there's the most value, and that's the game I bet. But no, I don't do a flat bet. I mean, I've never done a flat bet. I always do a percentage bet. To me, I would never do anything else. I mean, a percentage bet for me is simple because if I'm in a losing streak, my bet goes down, which only makes sense. If I'm in a hot streak where my bankroll is going up, my bet goes up. So no, I don't flat bet. And I break down each game a certain way. And wherever there's most value is what I'll hit. And by the way, again, going back to if you treat it like a business, it'll pay like a business. You better be doing that the day before the game or you're going to lose value the next day.
Mm-hmm. Those are great points. Why don't we ask Pete, the same question for Mr. Gokster. How do you choose what games you bet? Do you bet all your plays a certain bet size?
I mean, I obviously you have a basic unit, and then I will increase the bet size based on how much I like it. But you have to be very careful when you're betting straight bets and using any kind of Kelly influenced betting scheme, and they're all simultaneous bets going, which is the case, with baseball. I mean, I know a lot of sometimes, there's games that start a few hours later, but basically they're all simultaneous bets. And you do have to be careful because, I always bet a lot less, or not a lot less, but significantly less than I would if it were just one baseball game going on one at a time. And it's exactly for that reason. I don't want variance to screw me. And, whatever, go 2-6 or whatever in the early games. And all of a sudden, based on my bankroll, I'm way overstaked on the later games. So, I definitely, that's something you have to be careful about. You have to, be aware of the way Kelly staking works and bankroll money management, what proper bankroll management is, and be aware of the pitfalls that can come when you're making a bunch of simultaneous bets. And again, so I definitely bet significantly less when all the games are going on at the same time than I would if they were going one after another.
Interesting. And how do you answer that question?
With me, the games I decide, I mean, it's going to sound simple, but it's the ones with the most value. If I see a line that's minus 130 and I have the game lined at minus 175, I'm betting that minus 130 and the opposite. If I think it should be plus 130, but they're giving me plus 180, I'm going to bet the games that have those kind of values. To answer the question on the bet size, I flat bet. The main reason why I do that is just because my main income comes from mine and my partner's job, our outside income. That's the income that we use to pay all of our bills. So my gambling income or my gambling money is just for that. It's for sports betting or any other gambling I want to do. So I just do it. I treat it as a flat bet system on that. And, any profit I make, I'll withdraw from 5 Dimes or call up my bookie or, go to the casino and tell them to cash my ticket. And, I'll just either use that money to keep betting or, if I get more than a certain amount of money in my bankroll, I just withdraw that and put that into our, our general fund. But I just flat bet. That's what I do. If I was betting sports as my full-time income, then, I would do a percentage like Matt was talking about. Because when you have a bigger bankroll, you want to be able to be making more and more because, that's how you're paying your bills. So, you want like a 3% bet with a $300,000 bankroll versus, 3% bet with a $30,000 bankroll.
The other thing I will say is that, a lot of times with these games, there's correlated plays that I both like. And you have to be very careful when you're making straight bets that are correlated. Like, for example, there are tons of times there will be a team that I like on the run line, and I also like the team total over. And maybe I also like them on the first 5 innings or whatever. And those are all correlated. So you have to reduce your bets on all of those, even if you love all of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, absolutely. When we would talk
Some
about
sports books let you correlate parlays in soccer.
I'm sorry? Oh, no, I'm talking about straight bets. I'm talking about straight bets.
I'm about to say you can do correlated parlays in soccer on some sports books. Kind of.
Still? Great.
Yeah.
But we talked about the danger of, when we had our show together, Pete, of tripling up in situations. And it was, it makes my palms leak just, Let's go to the next question from Connor McLaughlin. We'll start with Pete here. From our man, Connor McLaughlin says, for Pete, I'm going to pop this up on the screen. How much is playing first 5 innings becoming more profitable? It has become more important with starters not lasting long. And Pete, we've seen you play first 5s. We also seen you play second half. So can you answer that question for us? Yeah,
I mean, obviously, if you can, isolate the value, the better you can isolate value, the more you should do that. And of course, you can. I mean, there's people who a very popular bet is to win the first inning or score no score in the first inning. And those are, if you have a good way of assessing value with those kinds of bets, that especially if your bankroll size is not massive like the pros, those can be the best, most profitable ways to bet baseball. And of course, the books compensate by having higher juice and lower limits. But again, if you're able to beat those lines and the lower limits don't impact your betting strategy, those are the ways you should bet baseball. There's no reason to bet full game lines if the factors that you're using can be better used to isolate value in a first 5 innings line or a second half line or a first inning line or whatever, for sure. So yeah, I definitely usually when if I like a side, unless there's a strong reason not to do it, not to only take a first 5 in a full game or the full game line, I usually wind up on both of them. I usually wind up on the first 5 and the full game as well. That's just the way it winds up turning out. But that's only if the math dictates that I should do it.
What do you think about that question that Connor McLaughlin has, Matt? Is this is the first 5? Do you break down games into first 5 and second half? Is that something you do as well?
Hell yeah. I mean, first off, again, be an expert at something. You know what I mean? Be an expert at the first 5. Be an expert at the who scores first. Is there going to be run in the first inning? Nail it down and be an expert, at that. I actually made a living last year off of one simple thing. And remember this.
I do. I already know what you're going to say. I already know what you're going to say.
Give me the better team. Give me the better starting pitcher. And make it less than minus 130 for the first 5. Under that scenario, I bet it all last year every time it came up. So the better overall team, the better starting pitcher, and the juice under minus 130 for the first 5.
And those all run lines. Those first 5 run lines, not money lines, right?
Yeah.
Was that minus a half?
Yes.
Yeah, and I will say that the counter to what we talked about. The first thing we talked about, which was that teams, beginners tend to overestimate. I don't know if I should say that. All right, whatever. Right? Overestimate the value of starting pitching. There can be times when the market actually underestimates the value of starting pitching for 5 inning lines. And a perfect example of that was Garrett Cole. This past year, I was betting on the Astros, and if I could, the opposing team's first 5 innings team total under, which would actually usually be 1.5, heavily juiced, like 170 or whatever. But you'd be getting 1.5 runs on the opposing team, and that was just something that I bet, pretty much a no-brainer, game in and game out. Lost a couple here and there, but overall did very well with that bet. And,
right, yeah.
For sure.
Well, I want Ant to answer this question, but Matt sort of leads us into something he's been so successful at, and it's a real interesting angle. So here we have Matt with the better team and the better starting pitcher taking a minus a half, first 5 at minus 130 or better. Matt, talk about your success with favorites. And I know that Ant also has success in this regard, but it's not as extreme as how you do it. And I know the key is what you're talking about, treating capping MLB like a business and getting in on the night before. But when I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, but when you told me the amount of bets where you were at that point in the season, the amount of bets you've made on favorites, I was just dumbfounded. I was like, what? It changed the way I started thinking about baseball. Could you let the audience know a little bit about what I'm talking about?
Well, I mean, old school thinking, and it was right. It was proven by math, is that you take underdogs. I mean, underdogs in baseball have won for so many years if you just blindly bet underdogs. Well, it's different now. The good teams are so good and the bad teams are so bad that these good teams are covering these minus 300s, these minus 350s. And that's just what's happening. So what I do, I'm not going to take a minus 400. I'm not going to take a minus 350. I'm not going to take a minus 300 generally. I mean, maybe a couple times a year if I think it should be minus 4 or 375. But I'll find a way to get on the better team at reduced juice. So whether it be, first 5, whether it's a team total over, whatever I have to do to get on the better team at less juice, I'll do. The fact is right now, good teams find a way to win, bad teams find a way to lose. How many times you've been on the plus 300, and they're up 2-0 and they get blown out 13-2? Again, back in the day, you could take dogs blindly and make money. Over the last 4 years, if you've taken favorites blindly, you've made money. So it's switched because you have super teams now. Back in the 80s, you really didn't. In 90s, you didn't. Now you have the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Astros. They blow everybody out. And so what I hear is, and this is my favorite, well, every team's, even the bad teams, are going to win 60 games. It's like my favorite thing to hear. Even bad teams are going to win 60 games. You're right, but 40 of those 60 wins are going to be against other bad teams. So literally, they're going their whole year beating good teams 20, 30 times. The other wins, the other 40 wins they have are against the Blue Jays, against the Orioles, and against the Giants. So
that's a good. I hate to cut you off here, but it's a good point because I think it was either last year or the year before. I mean, the Orioles had like 3 wins against the Yankees the entire season.
Right.
They played the Yankees 18 fucking times.
Right. So
they won 3 games.
And this goes to kind of how I break down a game. I won't go too far in it. Those lines should be minus 400 because that's an 80% winning or 80% winning percentage. So, and they beat the Orioles 80% of the time. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I would never take a minus 400. I'm just giving you an example, but that's my little spiel on that.
I take minus 240s.
Well, and it brings up. We'll move over to Ant with the favorites thing, but Twaaty, one of the things that you succeed with is that you make that bet as soon as the line comes out, and
no doubt.
the following day there's been a 50 to 70 cent move on it. Yeah. But can you? Because I don't want to put numbers in. I don't want to. But can you give us an idea of there was a time you told me that you had made X amount of bets and the amount of times you'd bet dogs was so minimal.
Yeah, I remember the conversation. I had made 130 bets, and there were eight dogs, and that was 100 unit year. And I'm not any good. I'm just saying.
No, come on! Don't say yeah, you are. You're great. You're great.
I didn't mean it. I wasn't saying that for you to say.
No, I said it anyway.
I didn't. I'll shut up. But I'm saying that I managed to do that just with basically all favorites, because I found a way to get down on the better team, whether it was through first 5, first inning, or minus 1.5 or minus a half, or team total or whatever. I'm just you find a way to get on the better team at less juice.
When you said that you'd made 8 bets on dogs that time, it shook me. Guillermo Zertucci says, what's the best spot then, when you're finding the better team? And is it run lines? Is it minus 1.5? What was the best angle when you have the better team and you're looking for reduced juice? When you look back at your statistics, what was the bet that was working the most?
First 5?
First 5,
because you would get the better pitcher, usually significantly, and the better team, and usually you could get that at like 125, 130. I wouldn't go above 130 unless it was like I felt real confident. So once in a while I did go to 135, but that was the best scenario. I bet that hit it's above 60. 60.
It hit a lot. Hit a lot. I was hammering the same thing you were all season last year with that. That was a great look, and it hit a lot.
So how nice is it to have the better team every day? Every day you got the better team. You don't got to worry about the shit-ass bullpen and starting pitching and lineup. How nice is it to have the better team every day at less than 130? Hey, I'll take that. Yep. Even if it's got to cut the game in half, I'll take that. Here's a stat that'll kill you. And I shouldn't say a stat because I don't know the exact, but you would think there would have been a lot of ties in that first 5 that I would have pushed and lost. It was surprisingly low in that first 5, like 0-0, 1-1 I lost because I was given the half run. I bet it was, less than 10%. I thought I was going to get burned with it. I really never did.
It was very low because I was on the same bets. I mean, I think when we were doing the Sports Cake shows and we were going over the next day's lines and we were talking about which games we wanted to take that angle on, hardly any of those ever wound up being 1-1 after the first 5. We pretty much killed it. I come at it, though, from a slightly different angle. I do agree with Matt when you just got to start betting the favorites. And the reason why favorites are so profitable the last 4 years, it is, The Cubs and the Astros set the blueprint for the rest of the league back in 2009 to 2011 when they just decided to strip everything down to the bare bones and become completely shit. And then they used really good scouting, really good player development, and then they built monsters. The Cubs went to the NLCS, 4 straight years. The Astros went to the ALCS like 4 straight years, 2 World Series appearances. Both teams won a World Series. And the rest of the league saw the success that they had. So now you have half the league is trying to tank. And then you have the other teams, the Astros, the Dodgers, the Nationals, the Braves right now are looking really good. The Twins, the Indians, the Red Sox, the Yankees. I mean, they're not tanking. So a 93-win Red Sox team from 1992 is now a 105-win Red Sox team because they are just playing a ton of teams that are tanking. So that's one reason why it's good to bet favorites. One angle I do, though, with favorites is I don't really mess around with run lines, minus ones. I'll do minus ones occasionally. I just bet the money line. And the main reason why I say I just bet the money line is the run line and the money line. If I bet the money line on this team and then you tail me, but you bet the run line on that team, and we do that all season long where you just tail every money line I bet I do and you bet the run line instead, we're going to end up within a unit and a half of each other by the end of the year. Run lines and money lines are EV neutral for the most part. You're really not reducing. I mean, turning a minus 200 to like a minus 130, you're like, all right, well, I'm not risking $2, but you're also giving up a run and a half. So you also need to win that game by 2 runs. So you forfeit a win on every 1-run win. I mean, that's all baked into the line. So that's just the angle I look at it. Like, if you want to bet minus 1.5, it's the same thing as just betting the money line, in my opinion, because to me, it's just all EV neutral when you look at the long term. So that's why I just kind of stopped trying to get fancy doing run line here or whatever. I just like, all right, I'll just lay the $2. If I see the Twins are playing the Royals and I have the game lined at minus 260, but the Twins open at minus 200, I'll just drop the $2 on the Twins without really thinking twice about it.
No, I hear you, and then let's bring that back to Pete here because he's got a elite level of understanding how to bet a situation, and we brought it up when Pete was on our show.
Slightly better than average.
Sure. That's whatever you're comfortable with. But
yes,
we brought it up a couple weeks ago on the show how, when we first worked together, I was like, oh man, when they see what I can do in NHL, I'm going to be able to stick around. And I knew that. And I was like, wait till they see what I can do in NHL. Wait till they see how much better I am. I was cocky in my head, and then that year I did get up to 43 units up, but at the end of the season, you had a higher unit count. You had a better season than me, and you were on minus ones. And Dan Kelly, spent 2 years trying to get me on minus ones and to stop going for the minus 1.5. And I can understand psychologically the reason why I was going for the puck lines for me was because I was, I had a smaller budget and I wanted bigger scores because I wasn't, I couldn't bet as much money as I would have wanted to and whatever. But talk to us, Pete, and I know Ant does the same thing, and I'm not sure how much Matt does it, but you are a minus one machine. Why is it that you love the minus one line?
I don't know if I'd necessarily love the minus one line. When you're betting run lines, the only thing that you're handicapping is volatility. That's it. That's the only thing that you're handicapping. I mean, a lot of times what you're really doing is just being too afraid to lay minus 200, so you feel better laying 1.5 minus 125. But what you're really doing is just betting volatility. If you expect high volatility in a situation, you want to take as big dogs as you can. If you expect low volatility, you want to take as big faves as you can. And so, if you expand, there are obviously ways to measure and handicap volatility. That's something that I definitely do. That's what I definitely do. And and I don't know if the market does it as much as it should. And so if you expect higher than normal volatility, you want to take as big dogs as you can. Of course, you pay for that privilege. So when you take a run line, you're basically just going from reduced juice. Usually, some books will offer, if you line chop, whatever, but usually you're going from, reduced juice to minus 110 lines. But if you start doing minus 2.5 and 3.5, then you really start to pay for it, and you'll see that the hold that the book has on those odds are significantly significantly better, and you want to stay away from that. But when you're just talking about a minus 1.5 line in NHL or in MLB, you're basically just handicapping volatility, and that's what I'm doing when I decide to. I don't always do it for sure, and a lot of times with a lot of Pittsburgh Pirate home games, for example, I would usually not be taking a run line there. I'd be taking a lot of money lines, even if they were 160 or whatever, 140. You're basically just handicapping volatility both ways, high and low.
That was a great answer to that. A question coming in from Connor McLaughlin that kind of leads us into a question from my man Intex. So let's go with Matt with this, and then also we'll go full circle. We'll end up back with Pete because of how he puts in the important study before the season starts. But we'll start with Matt. Connor McLaughlin says there are always spots with dogs, especially the last 2 months of the season, to make money. And we know that surely is the case in the last month, or we talk about that in the dog days of August. But Matt, how long into the season do you start betting on the better team? Can you bet on the better team in week 2 and week 3 and week 4? And figure out a way to reduce the juice, or does it take 6 weeks for these teams to really step up in a way that they're that much better?
No, day one. I watch enough. I know all these guys because of the eye test. Day one, I can pretty much jump on that and start going right into that. But he has a good point. Towards the end of the year, guys, if you're already in the playoffs, guys are sitting. You're not stretching your pitchers out. You know what I mean? You don't want to hurt their arms. So instead of them going 6 innings, they're going 3 innings. So there's some value at the end of the year with the dog, no doubt. But from day one, I can pretty much get on my groove. But at the end of the year, it's you got to watch because dogs will bite you at the end of the year because you're sitting your guys, your pitchers. You don't want to hurt their arms. So he's exactly right. There's some money to be made at the end of the year at plus money.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of the year. Intex says how many games have to be played to establish credibility of starting pitchers to play the first 5?
I know those pitchers. So unless it's a rookie who I'm not familiar with, I know those pitchers. So I hate to sound like day one. I can start that betting day one. Because I know the pitchers. If you're an analytics guy, you can't do that. You're going to need a month or 45 days of, seeing what they're doing. But if you know the pitchers, start right in it. Because you may even have a little bit of advantage over the book, right away. So.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I agree with that. In all sports, I always do the second half of the season is when I do well and kill it. And in all sports, in most sports, I actually don't do that well in the first half season, including baseball. And I'm going to try. I'm constantly trying to fix that, figure out what's going wrong. A lot of analytics guys I know tend to do better in the beginning of the season than the end because they say that the market is not caught up to where it should be. So there's lots of different ways to skin a cat. I guess we should maybe I could buy a few lessons from you on how to kick ass in baseball. Just first 3 weeks. That's all I need. First 3 weeks.
As I could with you.
Well, let's go with Ant here. Let's go with Ant here because Ant, you use XFIP, you use Sierra. You use these advanced analytics to make decisions on pitchers. Do you need 6 weeks to gather that data?
No, not really. Sometimes because you already have priors. You already have previous year statistics. So you'll use previous year statistics along with that season statistics. And usually by the end of the month, then you just kind of revert to all of that season statistics. But if I want to touch on something when it comes to, because we talk so much about favorites, people mentioned, when there's value on dogs. a lot of the times I'll bet a lot of dogs throughout the year. And I mentioned to you guys earlier, anytime there was a plus 350 that won last year in MLB, I had that ticket. Because when I do cap the game, no matter how much better one team is than another team, I've never really gotten a line to push much past minus 300. Whether it's Garrett Cole and the Astros last year going up against a Baltimore Orioles team, it's like I got to like minus 320 or something like that, and that's like the extent that I've gone. So if I see a team at like plus 350, there's always value on that team. And another thing you got to realize too is a lot of these fuck this. Come here. Shut up. A lot of these favorites, they're just getting steamed because they're being put in parlays. So if a team opens minus 200, I might not like that team because I'll have the game capped at minus 200, or I'll have that game capped at like minus 190. So I might not even care. But I'll have that game circled because I'm thinking, all right, maybe tomorrow, 5 minutes before the pitch starts, they'll be minus 290, which then pushes the underdog into value. And I can get that underdog at like plus 240 when, they open at like plus 180. I'm like, I don't want to bet them at plus 180, but at plus 240, now you got value. So that's one thing you got to think about is like a lot of the time people aren't betting these favorites and getting the favorites steamed because they're betting them straight. A lot of the time, you see these huge line moves on favorites because, that's parlay protection. People are putting all these favorites in their parlays because, like we talked before, every beginner just loves to bet money line parlays on favorites. So that can give you value on some of these underdogs. So almost every underdog I bet is usually about like 10 minutes before first pitch because I'm getting them plus 180, plus 200 when they open at like plus 140.
And one thing we see is favorites become bigger favorites throughout the day. Dogs become bigger dogs. So, Pete, if you want a dog, if you're like, it's the morning, you're like, I want to bet the Reds today is a plus 160 dog. Is it you doing your due diligence to wait all day before you bet that and bet it at 6:30 at night?
Yeah, I mean, usually if there's a line I like, I'll bet it there. But there's definitely like judgments that I make sometimes. If I think that that there's going to be a better line available, closer to first pitch, I do wait. I tend to just if there's a line I like, I tend to just grab it when it's there. But that's definitely not the case all the time for sure. And yeah, definitely true that the favorites, like these guys said before, if you've got old school Clayton Kershaw starting and the line opens at 320 or whatever, probably by first pitch, you'll see it go up and up and up and hit like 430, and then the last few minutes right before first pitch, it'll come back the other way. You will see that though. That's very common. Line move with those huge favorites. It'll get bet up and up and up and up and up, and then right before first pitch, a bunch of money will come back the other side. Sometimes a lot of money come back the other side. So that's something that you see a lot. For sure.
We've had this hour is blowing past so fast. It's been so exciting hearing you guys break down what's made you guys so successful year after year after year. Some more questions from the chat. We'll try to get through them really, really quick, but we got to put a bow on this. Gregory Wilson has a question. Let's go with Matt because Matt, you do a great job of, jumping on a hot team offensively. Gregory Wilson says, "Do you think there's value on runs plus hits plus errors?"
Of course. Again, I've said it a million times. Treat it like a business, it'll pay like a business, right? So become the run hits errors guy. That's all you do. Just do that. It's like basketball. Be the Mountain West guy. Be the whatever guy. The Big Sky guy. Be the runs hit errors guy. Most definitely. If that's all you do and you can master that, no doubt you'll make money. There's no doubt. Yep. Especially like Jimmy says, if you get that hot team. Yep. No doubt.
Gregory Wilson has a question later on the show where he says, "What are y'all's thoughts on the juice ball topic of last year? Do you think we will see a drop in runs scored?" Or
yes.
You guys take that away.
They unjuiced the ball. The ball was juiced last year. It was definitive, and they unjuiced it. So you will see.
I don't have a prediction, but I'm definitely going to be keeping a close eye out for it for damn sure.
And would that be something you would take advantage of at the beginning of the year, right off the top?
Depends if it depends on if the market's adjusted already by the beginning of the year. Because last year the ball was juiced, and about 2 weeks into the season, the market already adjusted, and you still saw people going, "Oh, bet overs, bet overs, bet overs." And it was a month into the season, and it's like, dude, they already adjusted every single total league wide by a run and a half. So, that ship sailed. You should have gone on it on week 1, like I did with Twaaty.
Is there if baseball pops off and starts up, is there a team that any of you guys are looking at as a sleeper squad this year?
Well, there was 2 things because I wanted to give the guys something. We're just talking theory and all that. I wanted to give the chatters two quick things: Brewers and the Twins overs to start the beginning of the year. Those are just ride them.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Brewers suck. They will.
If you just ride those 2 teams overs for the first 30 games, you should 17-3. I feel pretty comfortable with.
Brewers, Twinkies, overs,
Full games.
Overs.
I can't argue with that. The Brewers pitching staff is an abomination to humanity. They're a complete dumpster fire. If this was 162 games, if this is a 162 game season, the Brewers would be one of the bottom. The Brewers are going to be terrible.
The Brewers are fucking terrible. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
It's okay, buddy. It's okay, man. We're the Hods now. It's our show. You can swear the whole time if you want, or never.
Really? You didn't tell me that in the beginning.
Oh yeah.
I've been well mannered.
You have been. You're laying off the Taka and the Kamchatka vodka. That's why. Yeah.
Really?
He's got it.
Don't question me. I got it.
My team to look out for was I had 2 teams, the Mets and the Reds. They were both my sleeper World Series picks at the beginning of the year. If it was a 162 game schedule, full season, I loved the Mets. I thought they had a 95 win potential. I also thought their floor was 500, but I thought they had 95 win potential. And I really like what the Reds did this offseason. They added to their pitching. They already had a really good lineup. I'm not ecstatic about the Cardinals. I think the Brewers and the Pirates are complete fucking trash. And I think the Cubs are a 500-ish team. They maybe have been 85 wins type team if we had a full season. I really thought the Reds, there's a lot of value on the Reds. But that being said, I don't know what's going on anymore. Theoretically, at the beginning of the year, that's what I would have said was Reds and Mets.
The Reds are awesome this year. They are awesome this year.
Yeah, they look dangerous. Pistol Pete, we have a question from Mr. Ghoster. How's the Nicaragua basketball treating you tonight?
I'd rather not even look. I know the games they've been played for 33 minutes now. And again, I had 3 bets. All 3 of them the line, big line moves against me. So in situations like that, I just wait until the game's over, check the score, and that's it. I don't watch the progress.
So Pete, if they say tomorrow it's locked, MLB is starting up.
I'm ready.
Well, but what about somebody who's not ready? What would be the steps that they would take to start preparing themselves for the season?
Oh God! Last minute, ask everyone you know. Find someone you trust who is either a professional or a semi-professional who's doing like free shit on YouTube or wherever, and follow them. Take notes and maybe get 2 or 3 guys and do that last minute as well as you can.
Do you focus more on offense or pitching to get started?
This is not for this season. This is going to be a wacky year. I'm going to, once the schedule is set and the first lines are out, then I'm going to do a second, sort of analysis. This is going to be a wacky year. I will say I'm a little bit surprised that you guys are so down on the Brewers. Actually, I don't think they're going to be. I have my notes here, and I think their bullpen was bad last year. It might have been a little bit unlucky, and I see them as
right.
My notes here have them as a subpar team, but one that might have a little bit of betting value in spots. I'm not as down on the Brewers as you guys are, but I look at everything. Defensive numbers. There's a lot of defensive metrics there's been a lot of advances in defensive metrics in recent years. It's been very interesting. Defense used to be kind of ignored, and then when they started to use analytics for it. They weren't very good to start, but now they're a lot better. And, so I look at everything as much as I can get and start to make the educated guesses with day one.
This has been absolutely fascinating. Must watch again and take notes. Thank you guys for sharing your wisdom with us. I hope we get a season. We're sitting here on June 3rd. No baseball, just doesn't feel right. I hope we get a season so badly can bring you back and start.
First pitch will be my birthday, July 1st. Come on.
That's what I'm hoping. We're all hoping that first few days of July is when it all pops off. Pistol Pete Loshak, follow him on Twitter at P Loshak. And Pete, thank you so much for joining us. You got any last words for these great cappers in the chat?
You guys are sharper than you let on. You guys are sharper than you let on. A lot of the stuff you said, I didn't say it out loud, but I was thinking to myself, I was like, yeah, I agree with that. I've done that myself. Some of it I still do. Very impressed, guys. Such a great show. So great to be part of it.
Oh man, we love you. We love you and miss you. And all these guys, Pete, in the chat, miss you so much.
Shout out to everyone.
They all miss you enormously. So thank you so much for joining with us. Prince of the City, thank you, my friend. All you guys, Spencer Penji talking about Bo Bichette. These Jays are going to be fun offensively. I think
they are.
They're
going to be terrible pitching. They'll make up for their shitty pitching with some good offense. So that'll be a good a lot of 10 to 8 games and for out of this here.
Yeah, that's it. We were so excited about this year starting. Finally we have some hope here. Haven't had hope. No, it hasn't been that long, but had some hope again.
You were in the ALCS like 4 years ago. Come on.
Yeah, we did. We mortgaged the farm for that, and so we had to be last for a few years. So I hear that. No, and we're very excited. We're Vladdy Jr. is. I mean, come on, who couldn't be
good
about that? And L, we've missed you. I haven't seen you in a long time. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm gonna put your Twitter link here in the chat. Where can we find you moving forward? What shows are you up to and doing?
You can find me @L_SportsKeg on Twitter. And as always, I am part of the SportsKeg YouTube channel. You can follow us. We do live betting. There hasn't been a lot of live sports lately, but there has been MMA and there has been NASCAR. And yes, you can live bet NASCAR. That is a thing, and we do it. And the last 2 weeks have been a little rough. The last 2 laps of each race. Apparently, Chase Elliott thought it was a good idea to pit with 3 laps left when he had the lead, so that stuck it right up our keister. But other than that, we've been doing pretty good. You can see Matt on our show. Matt likes to make a lot of appearances on the SportsKeg YouTube channel, and that's what we do.
I love it, and we miss you. I'm going to I put up Pete Loshak's Twitter. Please follow him. Here is L star of the SportsKeg. I'm going to pop that here in the chat as well. And Matt, Mr. New in Town, okay, Twaaty Latte. Man, we love you.
You know where you can find me?
Where can we find you?
Rehab.
Gotta make me go to rehab, but I said no.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no.
TwaatyLatte.com.
Can we see you winning an MLB? I'm sure. You see that? Well,
don't be a jack of all trades in this. Be a master of one.
Yes.
Pick one thing and be awesome at it. Right? Like, don't fuck with me on the Pirates. I mean, just like pick your home team and be a master of your home team. And just
being a master of the Pirates is going to be easy this year. Fade them.
I probably will. Thank you.
Oh, they're going to be bad. They're going to be really
that was
bad.
monumental statement. Appreciate it.
They're going to be bad. I got to bust your balls on that. They're going to be so fucking terrible.
That Archer trade was just terrible.
Oh, my God. Wow, Tampa Bay. Your robbery.
We'll talk about that some other time.
Austin Meadows and Glass now.
The third player is a freaking stud too.
Yeah.
Who was the third player? Oh, tell me.
He's a stud pitcher.
How the hell did they give up glass now? Just glass now for Archer. Who the fuck thought that was a good idea?
And Archer had surgery today.
Yeah, he's out for all of this year.
Archer had 2 pitches. Glass now threw 98. What the hell were they thinking?
Glasnow was a beast. Big thank you to our analysts. Thank you guys so much. Your insight was so spectacular. I can't wait to watch the show again. On behalf of Loshak, Mr. New in Town, and L, we thank you guys in the chat. You guys in the chat make this show what it is, and thank you guys for being with us, capping with us, and your questions and your insights and your humor and everything. So big shout out to all you guys: Boston Nick, Dennis Garcia, Christopher Comatini, Gregory Wilson, Marty Muerte, Connor McLaughlin, Walter Scott, Gas Station, Sushi, Cynthia Paniagua, Spencer Penny G, Intex 2016, Mr. Ghoster, Gerardo Hernandez, West Coast, Nilo, Rod Zawacki, Tuvin, Gansam. What a great group. Tony Bruscher, thank you guys so much for rolling with us. Hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to us for us at Odds HQ. Check us out at odds.com. We got a bunch of cappers here in the chat putting out great stuff. We have Dennis Garcia's Thoroughbred looks every day, and we have Belmont back. Big Sandy started today, and we'll be beating it up all day tomorrow. So check us out. Also, we have Mr. Ghoster in the chat putting out his KBO articles. He's killing Korean baseball. Check that out. Follow us on Twitter at odds110. And on behalf of Twaaty Latte and Lodals Loshak, thank you guys so much for watching. And let's hope that baseball comes back soon so we can make money like these guys do. Enjoy your evening. Thank you for watching. That's how we do.